Hola Bandidos, ¿cómo estamos? Welcome to Mel's Magic. This is episode 22, and we're hereby closing season 2. Voila. I decided to have 22 episodes per season, just like in the tarot. There are 22 major arcana cards. And actually, this is, if we were to follow the tarot, this would be the world. The world is completion. And then comes the Fool, which marks a new cycle. So as you know from episode 20, I've decided to go back to basics and focus my videos on my journey through depression and what I do to stay out of it and how I maintain a higher vibration, because I feel it's such an important topic nowadays. And it's really, I've made it part of my purpose and mission of Mel's Magic to voice and share my story. This is a bit of a late night edition here. It's dark outside. And I guess I just want to go back to how I started Mel's Magic and base it on just my day-to-day life and how what happens instigates thoughts and responses in me and soothing mechanisms instead of self-flagellation mechanisms. So I actually woke up super late today. Little anecdote, I was invited by our neighbors last night to come over and have a drink and basically bring their plant here because they're away for like 2 weeks in a caravan. So I went there and it ended up being, when you get caught up in a conversation and then they had kava and I have a real hang up for kava, it's pretty much my number one drink, alcoholic drink. And as you know, as you may know, it's so drinkable and it gets to your head so fast. And before you know, anyway, I woke up 2 hours later than planned this morning. I usually wake up at 8, so I woke up at 10. I was like, this feeling when you wake up, you're like, oh shit, what time is it? And you have this kind of doomsday feeling like it's probably pretty late. I mean, it wasn't that late, but it was 2 hours later than I had planned. And this was because we had a friend over for lunch and I was supposed to cook. Finn. My old self, I caught myself this morning, my old self would have immediately, and I felt the kind of pull towards that old self, old pattern, would have immediately beat up on myself. Like, this voice called the critic. You shouldn't have stayed out. You shouldn't have drank so much. You've got all this stuff to do. I felt it coming onto me like this tsunami of self-flagellation, basically. And I thought, no, you're feeling a bit slow and a bit low. And we know why. We had a little bit too much to drink yesterday. It was Friday though, TGIF. But anyway, I had a little bit too much to drink. Your body's a bit slow. We've got stuff to do. But the last thing we need now is beat ourselves up for what we should have, could have, would have done. You know what I'm saying? I could have easily given into that voice. I could have easily beat up on myself and made myself feel worse. I was already a little bit low vibe, not my usual. But I refused. I said, no. We know this voice so well. It's been with us all our life. It caused us nothing but pain. Actually, it didn't cause us pain, it caused us suffering. It made us feel small our entire life. And we're not going to put up with it anymore. So I told the voice, I hear you, I see you, I know who you are, and you are the devil. Quote unquote. I call him the devil because it sabotages me. So in the corner, we're not doing this to ourselves anymore. We're going to actually be gentle and have some compassion and gently push ourselves into the day and get on with stuff. But from a vantage point of self-care rather than self-recrimination, that was the word I was after. And something that helped me recently was, I think Teal Swan mentioned, try and live for a year and ask yourself several times a day, what would somebody who loved themselves do? So it really clicked with me yesterday. So this is a good way of approaching things. I'm going to try this out. What would somebody who loved themselves do, i.e. this morning? My answer was, well, they wouldn't beat up on themselves. They would probably have chuckle a bit, say, hey, was one drink too much, hey, getting old. Can't process stuff anymore so fast. But it's fine. Relax. It's all good. It's going to be okay. And I thought, I'll go with that answer rather than the critic's voice. And that took a bit of discernment, which is another point I want to talk about. And the fact that I could just pause and discern the voices, i.e. the critic voice, from a more nurturing voice, that's a huge step. That was a huge step for me. Because as I shared in my last episode, one of the real factors for me of going in and out of depressed states pretty much all of my life was giving in to this critic voice. There's a book I want to quickly share. Very good book. It's called The Phantom of the Psyche by Peter Michelson. And it's this phantom voice that kind of operates just outside of our awareness, in the shadows. So I didn't used to be able to be aware of that voice, and that I wasn't able to discern that voice was not actually my core authentic voice, which loves me. It was this critic voice. So in the book, The Phantom of the Psyche, Michelson really elaborates very, very eloquently on this literally this phantom which haunts us and which makes us feel small and which belittles us, which judges us, and which makes us feel shit, to be honest, which makes us feel like we are no good, we will never be good enough, nothing, whatever we do is not good enough, and people will find out. I mean, I used to have huge imposter syndrome too, because of this voice that always used to tell me, you're shit. You think you're good, but you're no good, and you're pretty shit actually, and somebody's going to see through you. This feeling where you're always walking on eggshells, and you have this feeling, you feel led to anxiety also, because I was so hyper attuned to other people, seeing through my self-perceived rotten core, and then having this critic on, judge my every step, my every action, telling me that I was no good. I mean, it pretty much hell. So the fact that I was able to catch myself this morning and to then be aware that I caught myself, to be in this state of mindfulness, for me is huge. And yesterday we spoke about the importance of appreciation. I told myself, hey, Melanie, this is a huge milestone. I'm so happy you're doing this for yourself, and we're going to keep on nurturing this discernment, this self-awareness, and shining this flashlight of consciousness onto the critic and put him into place. So instead of beating up on myself this morning, I made myself some fresh apple juice. I told my mother, I said, listen, I know I was supposed to cook, but I don't think I'm in the right state. And she said, it's fine, I've already cooked. I'm like, oh, thank you so much, salamat. And I even went for a run. Exercise is a really important daily component of my self-management, my maintenance of a higher vibration, just because of the sheer physical. I mean, we know this. We hear it all the time, but the biochemical effect of exercise is not to be underrated. We are the producers of our own serotonin, endorphins, dopamine. I mean, all the happy chemicals, we are able to produce them. And one of the forms is literally exercise, just because it regulates your hormones, it gets rid of toxins, gets your heartbeat flowing, puts you back into your body. I mean, a huge issue of mine has always been also to be stuck in my head. You know, my awareness, my consciousness was pretty much up here. I wasn't very body aware throughout my life, just because I felt actually very unsafe in my body. So that's another video, I guess, how I make myself feel safe nowadays in my body. So I was never really grounded. But I know now that for me, in order to function properly daily, it's a must. I have to exercise in one form or another. And I've always been quite athletic, and I thank my parents for that. They always they always encouraged me to do sport. And it's literally a no-brainer, thank God, you know, the brain goes in the body and just makes you feel so much better. So I went for a run, albeit knowing that I might be a little bit late for this guest to arrive. But I said, you know what? I will gently explain to the guest that I had to do this and she will be fine, which is another point I want to expand on, is this people pleasing. I think a former version of myself would have sacrificed myself in order to meet an expectation of somebody else. But honestly, I put my self-care is a top priority, because I know that if I do not take care of myself, everything else goes down the drain. Alles tote Hose. You know, there's a reason why in the airplanes they say put your mask on first before you even give it to your child. Or what did Jesus say? Come on, love your neighbor as thyself. But the whole as thyself needs to be operating first. So self-care is up there for me. And as I said, my last episode 20, I'm still learning, you know, I'm learning to get to know myself, to understand what makes me happy, what makes me feel good, what my body needs. It's a process. You know, we're kind of born into this body, but it's a whole learning process to actually understand yourself, you know? So that's also, I'm trying to be patient with myself. This was another big thing. I'm really, patience is not my virtue, but I'm trying to, as a component of self-love, cultivate patience and gentleness. I used to be so hard on myself. But again, I was looking at myself this morning as a kind of, you know, a little bit hungover, and I decided to be, oh my God, sorry. I decided to be gentle with myself and self-care and nurture myself instead of beating up on myself. So as part of my purpose to share my journey, this is, sorry, oh my God, guys, what is going on? I thought I put my phone on silence. One second. Okay. Sorry. So again, self-care is part of self-love, and it's the one thing that I never used to do when I was in and out of depression, in and out of anxiety. I never really tuned in, and I easily gave in to that critic voice, which was pretty much the dominant. If you look at your inner life, there's several voices. Not that you're necessarily, you know, doesn't mean anything wrong with you, but there's several voices in your head, parents, culture, so on. And in my case, this critic voice had the mic. If you imagine all of these voices having a mic, the critic voice had the mic, and my true self, higher self, was like pretty much mute. I didn't speak up for myself, not even to my, first and foremost, not to my critic. But everything started changing once I discerned this voice, and I recognized it wasn't my true voice. It was an aspect of my psyche which was out to destroy me, and to self as thanatos. So this eros, life, love, and then it was thanatos, the voice of self-destruction. And because this critic voice had the mic on high volume, it drove me further and further down into depression. So I'm very careful, and I'm very much trying to be self-aware, especially in my low moments, that I do not pass the mic to the critic, because he's just eager to jump on me like a predator. I said, no. Gentleness, compassion, patience takes nurturing. So I want to end this video here. It's getting long. Les mando un gran saludo. I also have the idea of recording myself in various languages. I'm kind of crisscross some Spanish here and there, pero creo que lo voy a hacer como en alemán, español, just to share my message and my voice in as many languages as I'm able to. Y con esto les dejo. I wish you a beautiful Sunday evening and a good start to the week ahead. And nos vemos pronto, ¿vale? In season 3. This is Mel's Magic, and I'm Magic Mel. I'm here to bring back some magic, because we all need to reconnect it, no? Reconnect to it. Bye. Hasta pronto. Un beso. Ciao.